Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Playmakers. What's up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to continue doing the series that I've done in my past two videos where I go through a round of fantasy football ADP and talk about whether or not I would buy or sell each player at their current draft price. So the last 2 days, I've gone through round 1 and round 2. So today, it's time to go through round 3. While you guys are watching this video, if you're enjoying the content, please just leave a like and subscribe to the channel. That would really help support me, and I would appreciate that a lot. But let's jump right into it. Got to start off with the 25th overall pick, and that is currently CeeDee Lamb, and this is going to be a hard sell for me. I did a video a few days ago talking about the biggest bust in each round, and CeeDee Lamb was my biggest bust from round 3. I just think this ADP is way too high. It is so inflated. He should not be going ahead of Amari Cooper. And not only is he going ahead of Amari Cooper, he's going ahead of him by like half a round. I still think Cooper is the alpha on this offense, and I don't think CeeDee Lamb has the ceiling that a lot of people see from him just because he is going to be operating primarily out of the slot. I mean, the fact that he is going before Keenan Allen is just crazy to me. So there is no shot I'm picking CeeDee Lamb anywhere close to the 25th overall slot. Next up at the second pick of the third round, it is Keenan Allen, and I'm going to be buying this ADP just as much as I was selling CeeDee Lamb. I think this is a great value right here for Keenan Allen. He is currently my wide receiver 6, and he is being drafted way below that. I think he's going to have a monster season this year. You have Justin Herbert going into his sophomore season, had an amazing rookie year, and Keenan Allen is the clear-cut wide receiver 1 on that team. He is going to be a volume monster, and I think overall this Chargers offense is going to be a pretty high-scoring offense, so he should have a lot of opportunities to get into the end zone. And I think he is an amazing wide receiver 1 that you guys can be drafting in the third round. Next up at pick 27, it's George Kittle coming off the board as the third tight end. And I'm going to be buying this current draft price. I think this is just a very fair overall slot for him to go. I do have him as the third overall tight end, but being drafted 5 picks after Darren Waller, I think is pretty appropriate. You know, he's been a top tier tight end for a while now. I definitely think he has earned this slot, and I do expect him to repeat as a top 3 tight end in points per game this year. There is a little bit of competition in that target room just with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. We don't exactly know what the quarterback situation is, but I still think George Kittle is going to be a huge part of that offense. But, you know, going in the early third round with the positional advantage he can give you over the rest of the field at tight end, I think this is definitely a fair slot for him. With the fourth pick of the third round, this is where Terry McLaurin is going, and I'm going to be selling this ADP. I do like Terry McLaurin. He's my 13th overall wide receiver. I just think this is a tad bit too early for him to be picked. I think he's going ahead of one receiver that he 100% clearly should not be going ahead of. I do not think Allen Robinson should be being picked behind Terry McLaurin, but even after that, players like Amari Cooper and Mike Evans, I like both of those guys more than Terry McLaurin, so I'm going to be fading him here at the fourth pick of the third round. But I mean, a few picks later, I think that's more of a tolerable spot for him. Next up at the 29th overall pick, the guy I just mentioned, Allen Robinson. I'm totally buying him at this slot. He's really just one of the safest options that you can get at the wide receiver position. You know, if you go running back, and he is your third round wide receiver pick, I think you've got to feel good with that just because you know exactly what you're going to get out of him. It literally doesn't matter who's at quarterback. You could have Dalton, you could have Fields, you could have Foles. I feel confident that Allen Robinson is going to be getting the job done on a year-to-year basis as well as a week-to-week basis. He's going to have a solid volume in this offense, and I just expect another solid, low-end wide receiver 1 or high-end wide receiver 2 season. At pick 30, this is another player that I mentioned earlier. It is Amari Cooper, and I'm also going to be buying him at this slot. I have him ranked just behind Allen Robinson in my wide receiver rankings. A-Rob is number 10, Amari Cooper is number 11, and like I said, I think he should 100% be going ahead of CeeDee Lamb. He has been the wide receiver 1 in this Cowboys offense for a few years now, and I think he's going to hold on to that spot. Also, he operates outside far more than CeeDee Lamb did, so I just think he has a much higher ceiling than Lamb, and with Dak Prescott back, I'm expecting a huge year from Amari Cooper. We saw in that stretch when Dak was healthy, Amari Cooper was putting together some really impressive performances. So I'm excited to see what he can do this year with a full season of Dak at QB. At the 307, we have the first running back coming off the board in the third round, and it is J.K. Dobbins. And I'm going to be selling him at this current price. I do not think he should be going ahead of running backs like Swift and Chris Carson. And as you can see, Chris Carson isn't even being drafted in the third round. He's being drafted in the early fourth. So there's no shot I'm spending a mid-third round pick on J.K. Dobbins when I could be getting a guy like Chris Carson half a round later. For J.K. Dobbins, the upside is clear. He's going to be efficient. He's going to have a lot of touchdown upside, but I just don't feel confident investing in him this early when he has practically zero receiving upside, and I just don't think this workload is going to be that big. I feel like a maximum amount of carries for him per game is like 15, 16, and I think more in that like 13, 14 range is more realistic. And without that receiving work, he just becomes so touchdown dependent. And that's just something that I'm going to be selling at the 31st overall pick. At pick 32, it's going to be Robert Woods, and this is going to be a buy from me. I think pretty similar to Allen Robinson. You know exactly what you're going to be getting out of Robert Woods. Maybe I would pick guys like Mike Evans ahead of him, but I still think, you can't go wrong with him here just because he is so safe. He's been a wide receiver 2 for the last 3 seasons, and I think he's going to easily repeat this year and has wide receiver 1 potential now that Matthew Stafford is coming in. So I'm very high on Robert Woods and really couldn't fault you if you want that security here in the third round. At the 309, we have the second and also the last running back of the third round, and it is DeAndre Swift. And I'm going to be buying him here at this slot. I know there's definitely concerns with the Lions offense as a whole. They're definitely not going to be scoring a lot, but I do think Swift's role in the receiving game is definitely going to carry him. I may not like him as much in standard scoring, but I mean half point PPR scoring, I think Swift will really have a very solid season just because he's going to need to get the ball by default. There's no way the coaches can screw this up unless somehow they give Jamal Williams the starting role, which I just don't see happening. There's just not a lot of players on this team that can really make plays. Swift is one of those guys that can make plays, and so I just think they're going to be forced to use him, even if last year they didn't want to. And obviously it's new coaching staff, and so I do think Swift will have a very solid season this year just because of that role in the receiving game. We're back to the wide receivers here at pick 34, and this is where Mike Evans is being taken. And I think this is a pretty fair slot for him. I'm going to be buying him at this current ADP. I actually have him in my top 12 receivers. He's right at the end at the number 12 guy, but I think he's going to have a big year. I'm buying into this Bucs offense, especially like the wide receivers and the quarterback position, not as much the running game, but just this passing offense as a whole is going to be super high powered, and I think Mike Evans is going to be the number 1 option for Tom Brady. He's a great red zone threat, a guy with big playability, and so I just think his skill set matches up perfectly for a very explosive offense that has a lot of weapons because he doesn't need all that volume to perform. So this is definitely going to be a buy from me here. We have the first quarterback coming off the board here at the 311. Obviously, it's going to be Patrick Mahomes, and this is going to be a hard sell from me, almost as hard of a sell as CeeDee Lamb going in the early third. I'm just not willing to spend a third round pick on a quarterback. When you look at the quarterback landscape this season, there are so many solid options. I mean, players that you can get in the 5th round, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, maybe Josh Allen's going earlier, but I mean, Kyler and Lamar as a 5th round pick, I would much rather have that ADP than Patrick Mahomes here in the 3rd. Obviously, the appeal to Patrick Mahomes is that he just seems like a lock to be a top-tier quarterback. But I think the issue is he just doesn't have that crazy high ceiling that some of these other guys have. I bet the odds are that he doesn't finish as the quarterback 1. He's probably going to be a top 3 guy. But I mean, Lamar, Kyler, I think both of those guys have much higher ceilings just because of their role in the run game. That's just not Mahomes' game. And so if he was a guy who was super consistent but also had that ceiling, maybe I would consider it. But here in the 3rd round, with the depth I talked about, and even after that, players like Brady, Tannehill, Stafford in the later rounds, just definitely not willing to spend this price tag. All right, the last player of the 3rd round going here at the 312, it is Tyler Lockett. And this is also going to be a pretty hard sell for me. I think this is way too early for Lockett. He is just way too volatile on a week-to-week basis. he may finish as a wide receiver 1 in total points, but it's going to come from like 3 or 4 weeks in a season. And that is just not what I'm going to be looking for at the wide receiver position, especially in the 3rd round. That guy's probably going to be my wide receiver 1, and I just can't have that. I think I'd probably take like 5 or 6 receivers in front of him that have yet to be picked. Just off the top of my head, Julio Jones, Cooper Kupp, Deontay Johnson, DJ Moore as well. So definitely would not be picking Tyler Lockett here at the 36th overall. So definitely a sell from me. So that was my buy or sell for the 3rd round, picks 25 through 36. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you agree with who I was buying in on or selling? Whether or not you agree or disagree, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, and I'll respond to everyone. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you haven't seen rounds 1 and 2, make sure you guys go check out those videos, and then stay tuned in the next 2 days where I talk about rounds 4 and 5. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you tomorrow.